Welcome back to This American Ride podcast, where we talk about issues that affect you, the average American. What's up, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm George. I'm here with Burt, and this is officially the first look that you're getting at the new podcast studio that we have worked on. What do you think of the new digs?
Yeah, no, I like it. It looks really good. It's much better situated than previously.
Yeah.
With the table, we just need to work on something right here.
Yeah, we need a few things.
That
we're getting there.
we move that, and I move mine, and it moves yours, and vice versa. But no, it looks good in here. Like the paint, like the new setup. So yeah, this is cool, and I like that we now have the extra chairs.
For guests,
so we can get crack-lacking on some guests, which will be cool.
Heck yeah.
But, yeah, no, it looks really good. I like it. This is our second shot at showing them the new digs. Oh.
One thing for sure, I feel like starting this podcast, you've been doing YouTube for a minute, for a couple of years. And YouTube has its technical challenges. Like if you go out on the day and you screw up footage, you don't get a chance to get that footage back. Like that moment is kind of gone forever and lost in time.
Mm-hmm.
But with the podcast, we're under a different schedule. And if you have a technical issue, we basically lost an entire podcast. Yeah. Not out of stupidity, but I think just out of inexperience of not having duplicity of what's going on.
And you guys missed it's probably been a couple weeks since you've seen the pod or heard the podcast, and that's also because just getting going in this, we don't have them stacked up. We haven't had enough time to record a whole bunch, in case something like that happens. So we had some errors, and you guys missed a week, but hopefully we'll make up for it this week.
That's it, man. So we got a good one coming today, but first we have some exciting news. We picked up a sponsor for the podcast, and we're going to tell you about that sponsor right now. What's up, everybody? I just wanted to take a minute to tell you about the sponsor of today's podcast, Legendary USA. Their selection of leather and denim jackets, vests, gloves, chaps, and riding shirts are 100% made in the USA with a lifetime warranty. Legendary USA isn't just about style, it's about quality. With American-made products and a commitment to excellence, you can trust that you're getting gear that's built to last. Legendary USA isn't just for bikers. They have a full selection of shirts, hoodies, EDC, tactical and survival gear, all made here in the USA. And here is the best part. Legendary USA is offering our listeners an exclusive deal. When you shop at legendaryusa.com and use the promo code LegendaryPod, you'll get 15% off on your first purchase. That's legendary with a D and pod for podcast. So why settle for ordinary when you can be legendary? Click that link in the description to head on over to legendaryusa.com to explore their fantastic range of products and use the promo code LegendaryPod to snag your 15% off discount today. Now back to the show, and thank you for Legendary USA for supporting this podcast. Well, all right.
Yeah, man. That's cool.
Very, very excited. Very excited. So what are you drinking over there? What do we got going on?
I think I'm drinking that High West. That's what I poured.
The High West. I'm polishing off this little bottle of Woodford.
Easy, big fella.
Woodford Double Oak. I got some Low Tide over here.
Yeah, so very cool. Exciting for us anyway to have the sponsor. Sponsoring actually, both of our adventures in the podcast and the YouTube channel, and there'll be more about that coming out probably on the YouTube channel. But
yep.
As for you guys, man, just take advantage because they got some really nice stuff.
Yeah, it's just to talk a little bit more about them, just real quick. They have their own line of clothing, and they also carry a full line of Smith & Wesson EDC, which I didn't even know Smith & Wesson made. Knives, watches, Rothko, some tactical gear. So plenty of, all American stuff. So obviously, aligns with our, with our brand here being This American Ride podcast. And, we couldn't be happier. Chris, the owner, is a great dude. And we got lots more to come with us.
Yeah. And, they have their own their own stuff, their custom made leathers and things, but they also carry a lot of not just Smith & Wesson, but a lot of other name brands on the site and in the store. So, there's other stuff in there. There's a ton of stuff. You can be on the site for a while. So check it out.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah. So when last we put out a podcast, it was pretty heavy. It was all the Israel stuff and everything going on, the war over there. So wanted to make this a little more lighthearted, a little more fun today. And we were just kind of brainstorming on what something like fun and not serious that we could have a conversation about, and came up with 3 people, living or dead, that if you could have a sit down, a meal or something with, who would you want to be doing that with?
All my people are dead.
So yeah, he likes dead people. Yeah, mine aren't all dead. But anyway, so that's what we came up with. And so we're just going to go through that and kind of chit-chat about that. It's just for fun. And, when it's all said and done, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave in the comments, what your 3 would be and why, whatever. This is just purely for fun.
And if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you may consume your podcast on a daily basis, please leave us a review, leave us a rating. It means a lot to the podcast and how the podcast algorithms recommend new podcasts to people. So much appreciated.
Yeah, man. So let's dive into it. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off with
dive in
with yours?
Who am I going with first here? I think my first one would be my maternal grandfather.
Okay.
That's he was a cool dude. He was a World War II vet, and it's so cool. Recently we were helping my mom clean out the house, and I found some pictures of him that even I have never seen, from him in his late 20s, early 30s, with his father, who was a World War I vet. But my grandfather was, born and raised in New Jersey in Rochelle Park. He never graduated high school. He was sent to work in a paint factory at the age of 14 to help support the family. And when World War II came around, he and his brothers enlisted and went to the grave with the secret that they were drafted. It wasn't until well after he passed away, a little bit later in my life, I had a neighbor who had enough experience and access, my neighbor Nick, and he was a PR public relations officer for Lakehurst Naval Base, actually, and he was able to research the service numbers and what service numbers mean, and found out, obviously, when you were drafted via the selective service, as they would call it, or you're enlisted, they give you there's 2 different sets of service numbers that they use for, field commendations and that type of thing. They give the volunteers a little bit more preference. I don't know if they still do that, or if we don't have a draft right now, eventually when we do have a draft, God forbid, if that would still be the case. And so he enlisted. He was a D-Day vet, second wave D-Day vet.
Wow.
And fought all the way to the end,
That's
so
cool.
very, it's very cool. He
made it home from that.
Made it home from that. I mean, not without mental wounding. I mean, those guys, they very, very different. I feel like it was a very different generation for them. He had a wound in his foot that never fully healed, where he took, I don't know whether he was shot in the foot or a piece of shrapnel or whatever, but there was bone damage there that never really healed that he had. So that wound was always, kind of bothering him. He, soldiers back then, the vets came back, they found their brotherhood at the neighborhood bar. And I can remember being a kid with him going into this bar in Jersey City called Chippy's. I mean, not Jersey City, Bayonne, called Chippy's, right on Broadway in Bayonne. And it was like old home week every time they walked in there. I mean, all of these guys were vets. It was like their VFW.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where they went. They had their scotch. They had their beer.
Did they have VFWs at that point, or is
I
that
don't
why they were
think,
created?
I'm probably pretty sure that's when
Probably
they were
started
created.
around then.
I feel like VFWs came like Korean War Nam-ish, but it's something to look up because I really don't know when they started. But regardless, it wasn't where these guys went. I mean, they went to their local bar. I mean, they were all, so many people served in World War II. There were so many of them there. And after the war, he worked at Westinghouse, which was an elevator company. I mean, Westinghouse did a lot of things. And next time you walk into a building, look at the name of that elevator, and there's two. There's one that begins with an O. I can't remember the name of it. And then there's Westinghouse, are the two big ones. And he helped build the elevators in the Twin Towers.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's
that was
cool.
one of the jobs that he worked on.
Wow.
So, I mean, he obviously shaped my mom, a lot of who my mom was. Passed away. He passed away. I feel like I was still young, and that's the thing. That's why I'd love to kind of get back with him and, obviously ask some questions. He talked a little bit about the war when we would go fishing, kind of towards the end of his life. I think when he was, faced with his own mortality, because he passed away of cancer that he never told anybody he had. So
nice.
It was, and we think we think he had it for a while, and that was the whole reason he moved my grandmother out of Bayonne to be close to my mother.
So when around about, what was it, like 80s? They
87. He passed away March 22nd, 1987. Okay. So hence I was 11 because I would have just turned 11 because March 22nd, 76 would be when I was born. So interesting how all things kind of, come into a circle. But
full circle, huh?
He was a man's man, as I would say. He was the head of his household.
I think most obviously not most, but I think that's more typical of people our age as grandfathers.
Yeah.
Right. And even in our case, our fathers, but that's kind of getting less and less. Pretty soon, you won't even be able to say that at all.
Yeah, and he was the guy who, he introduced me to, the old westerns and the old World War II movies, and I remember back in the early '80s, they had a very small, like 3-room apartment. He would still listen to shows on the radio, like when they would still broadcast westerns on the radio in the early '80s. The programs, yeah, that's what they call them, the program. They still call them the programs when they came on TV. They were still their programs. Yeah. And then he, that was, I remember him watching People's Court. That was like his TV show. That was like very early on. Crazy. But yeah, so he was a cool dude. And, towards the end, obviously he talked about the war a little bit, and one about how, how terrible it was because, some of the fighting that those guys went through was pretty intense, crossing the Rhine and trying to cross those rivers with makeshift bridges, and the Germans had those positions, dialed in with their 88s, and every time they would set a bridge up at night, he said they would just shell the bridge during the day. They couldn't even cross during the day. Which was, I guess, one interesting question is, if they had the area, dialed in, why didn't they just shell it at night too? It's not like they're aiming, they're miles away.
Yeah.
But again, he did do a lot of fighting. There was some hand-to-hand fighting. There was a lot of stuff he went through in that war. So I would, love to hear more about that, and obviously love to hear more about what it was growing up in Rochelle Park, New Jersey, which was in the
probably better back then than it is now.
In the 20s,
Yeah.
So recently I found his birth certificate, so we're gonna go find the house. That's my new thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Fun weekend thing to do.
So yeah.
Nice. Cool.
So,
well, I didn't do any family. I didn't want to get deep. I didn't want to get into the feels, but
you know me.
Yeah, no, that's cool. My first one, I guess I'll get my Hollywood out of the way, because obviously, I mean, I think a lot of people would do this and they'd just be full of Hollywood people, and I'm not really, I don't know, don't like Hollywood these days. But that's the whole point of this, is this person's not from these days. So my first person would be John Wayne. I'm obviously a big John Wayne fan. Well, obviously the people that know me, not not all of you, but yeah, I would want to meet John Wayne, man, just because that was such a different era of leading men. You know, that was bad. If you think about it, like John Wayne was like, as a leading man back then, like you're like a little bit of everything now. Like you're action hero, you know, drama, romance, like it's all rolled into one when you were a leading man back then. You know, It's kind of changed over the years and become, I don't know, more like movies are like specific. You know, you have people that do romance, you got people that do
comedy.
You had your comedy, you had your action heroes. You know, we all know the action heroes of the 80s and 90s and whatnot. But no, I just love to sit with him and know what it was like to be a leading man back then, when there was a lot more. I feel like people really loved Hollywood a lot more. Now, don't get me wrong, we have people still infatuated with Hollywood, but I think a lot of America has become very enamored with it and kind of over it. And they were just classier back then, you know. When tabloids got shots of, you know, guys like John Wayne out and about, they were still dressed, you know, like in suits and looking good, and they went out, and when they did things on the town, they were looking good. Like now, everybody's in freaking tights and sweats and hoodies, and it's just like hiding from the paparazzi and whatnot. And back then, I don't think they really, you know, they didn't really hide from him. But just love to sit with him, hear some stories, maybe hear some stories about. I'd love to know what his favorite movie was, you know, favorite one to make, favorite one, maybe the favorite one to make, and the favorite one, how it turned out, are different. Maybe you know, hear about some scandalous stories, maybe some ladies he dated or something that maybe nobody knew about, or, you know, some of those kind of little secrets that happened that never got out, stuff like that. I really just, I mean, he was just a manly dude for like Hollywood, you know.
Yeah.
And would love to just spend a few minutes and get some stories and whatnot. Yeah, nothing deep.
It was, I feel like it was a time when men were men and women were women, and nobody was confused about that.
Yeah, well,
and Hollywood was new, you know. Hollywood was kind of just gearing up into its real prime at that point. You know, I feel
the
like
glitz and the glamour, and everybody was really just, you know, awestruck by it and you know, loved it. And now, like I said, like
there was mystery.
There was mystery.
I feel like there's less mystery now with internet and
tabloids, with technology and all of that. You know, we know everything, and way more than we want to know, and it's kind of taken the excitement out of it.
Yeah,
you know, and just kind of revealed a lot of these people for just being like scumbags and not necessarily somebody to like be awestruck about. So
very true. Very
you know,
true.
so yeah, that's my one.
All right, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I love his movies, man. Ask him questions about movies, favorite you know, actors that people that he worked with and stuff like that.
Yeah, he was
stories.
The Duke.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's a nickname right there. That's a the Duke. I don't know anybody in Hollywood I mean, we got The Rock, but I mean, it's kind of like a the Duke was.
Yeah, it was a wrestling name that just stuck with him. Yeah.
Oh man, the Duke was just that was like the to me one of the best film nicknames of all time. You know.
Yeah.
So
we were a lot bigger into nicknames back then. Like all the football players back in the early days of football had nicknames.
White shoes,
you know, just all kinds of them. And now it's, I don't know. Now the people's names are so bizarre that they don't need nicknames.
That's kind of true.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're given nicknames at birth, and that's their names.
And it sticks.
Weird.
And it winds up on their jersey.
Football's the same way. It's like, It's not so and so nicknamed so and so. It's like Booger McFarland. Still drives me nuts. Booger McFarland. All right, dude. That was, you know, I get it. Your grandma, your whoever gave you that name. It stuck with you through your playing days, but you're now a grown ass man, probably 50 something years old, 50 years old, pushing 50, whatever he is, on like doing like broadcasting national TV, and they're like, hey, let's send it up to Booger. Like, come on, man. Come on. Be better. Just go by Chris.
Is that his name? I wouldn't even know.
So, Chris.
So you don't even know.
I think it's Chris. Chris McFarland. Pretty sure.
Oh, Jesus Lord. Well, my second one is not family. My second one is somebody who I think has impacted our lives more than we realize, and probably impacted our lives probably more than he realized he ever would, and that's Einstein. Time for some geeky stuff.
Time for some nerd stuff. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
So
Einstein, huh? So why do you want to sit with Einstein?
Einstein, man, I would, if for nothing else, to ask Einstein, the one question of, did you think the theory of relativity would have the impact on the world that it has?
Okay.
And I think, obviously modern TV wouldn't be here without the theory of relativity. All right. Mm-hmm. Light and sound traveling. The other thing that is used for the theory of relativity, GPS. How much does GPS, affect, play into our lives in ways that we don't even know it? Right. Trucking companies use it, families use it. You use it in your car. Railroad companies use it to track every freight car that's on the railroad. So many different things. And then the military implications are all the targeting systems. They're all based, loosely one way or another on the theory of relativity. And, interballistic missile traveling paths, all of that is just, all a product of E equals MC squared. So, I mean, it's it's a crazy thing, but, it's, I feel like, it's this genie that was like let out of the bottle that, it's, once it was turned loose and other scientists started to expand upon it and people started to work with it and perfect it, it took on a life of its own, similar to obviously how we're worried about, AI these days taking on a life of its own. The theory of relativity was kind of that, that AI of like that generation where it was like this theory that was then expanded upon that people learned on and people, found different applications to, and now it impacts the world in maybe not so positive ways. So it'd be interesting to see how he'd feel like that. Plus, he was like a joking dude, like most guys of like that intellect. You don't, yeah. Everything you read about him, like he had a very like fun demeanor. He wasn't like this stern, like nerdy, geeky, college professor.
He was a fun nerd.
He was a fun nerd, man, and he spent his final days teaching here in Jersey at Princeton University. His house, you could still go find his house.
How old was he when he died?
I don't know how old he was. He was pretty old. I didn't necessarily look that up, but I love the pictures of him with the crazy hair. I mean, man, he just...
Yeah, I wonder if his hair was really like that all the time.
I think it probably was.
Think so?
I think it probably... I mean, there's stuff that he like wore 2 different socks and, like he just like those details...
That would be good info to know.
Those details like just weren't,
I feel like somebody like saw him or got a picture of him one time with his hair jacked up after he probably electrocuted himself or something. And then that was Einstein. That's how everybody knew Einstein. He normally had his hair probably like slicked down. And,
I got to tell you, if his hair was slicked down,
ponytail.
If I were to meet him and he had a ponytail,
he had a man bun.
My level of disappointment would be huge. I got to tell you.
He shows up to your dinner with a man bun.
I'd be like, Albert, what the hell, man? What the hell?
I can see an Albert with a man bun.
Well, I mean, he's teaching at a university, so maybe nowadays he would be the man bun guy.
Yeah.
Nowadays you don't know, but I mean, he immigrated here from Germany. He was, part of, he was part of Jews being stripped from, positions of authority and positions of prominence in Germany. He was replaced on a lot of boards and universities that he sat on because he was Jewish, and got himself out of there and got him, him and his family got them to New York and then to New Jersey, and escaped. The world might have been a little bit of a, even though he obviously discovered relativity, earlier in his career a little bit. The world might have been a very different place should the Third Reich have scooped him up and, had him killed. So,
yeah,
it's interesting the way history takes place.
Yeah. How the chain of events could change based on one incident in time or one moment in time.
It's insane.
The world could be a different place.
Yeah.
At least when you're talking about people like him who
went on to
had
have a
an
huge
effect on the world.
impact, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
So, yeah, so Albert Einstein, I think he'd be a good time, man.
You think he'd be a good time?
I think he'd be a good time. I know. If you're just listening, not watching on YouTube, yeah, you're going to see Bert's face when I said that one.
I definitely think it would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know about a good time, but maybe who knows? Maybe,
I feel like he'd be a genius that's easy to talk to.
maybe it'd be like Revenge of the Nerds, man. They were a good time. They knew how to party,
They knew how to party.
right?
I bet you Albert knew how to throw a few back, man. I'm telling you.
He probably did. Funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Good one.
Not
That's a
bad,
good one.
not bad.
That was a good one. So, yeah, so when we came up with this, in theory, it sounded easy, right?
It is not.
That would be easy. It'd be easy to think of that. And then, you know, I got my John Wayne out of the way, and then I was like, who would I want? Like, and what? Like, you know, there's people sure that would love to meet. There's football player, obviously a big football fan. There's football players I'd love to, but like, that's just because they're football players. Like, it's not that it's not that big a deal, right? So we were thinking about it. You know, I was racking my brain, but then I came up with this one, and it would be Peter from the Bible.
Peter.
Yeah, I would love to sit down with the Apostle Peter and talk about, you know, his days with Jesus, and more importantly, like what was like going through his brain, you know, when he denied him. Like we all, you know, if you know anything about the Bible, that whole story about how he denied him, and just I don't know. It's intriguing to like, and obviously like we had talked about this, and you had said, well, why not Judas? Well,
Why not Judas?
I think it's kind of easier to figure out like why, you know, Judas did it. Like he got the money. You know, it was greed. He got money, and he didn't think that Jesus would die. He thought that Jesus would just get himself out of it. You know, whatever. You know, so it was, you know, money related, greed, whatever. But with Peter, he was such a huge. Like, he was Jesus's, you know, favorite one. If he really had favorites, that was his favorite one. You know, and he saw all the things that Jesus did, and the people he healed, and just all, you know, all of it. He saw all of the amazing things that Jesus did, and then still, when push came to shove, he was afraid, and he denied him. And I guess, you know, I was thinking about this too, like today coming over, like I guess really if you dig into it, you would say, well, it had to happen. That Jesus knew that was going to happen. That had to happen for the rest of the chain of events to happen, you know, and for the bigger picture. So, I mean, I guess that is an answer to that question, but I don't know. I still feel like, even that aside, just like talking to him about all the things that he watched Jesus do and witnessed in that, the time that he spent with him before, you know, Jesus' crucifixion and whatnot. So I thought that would be cool. Probably about as deep as I'm going to get, you know.
Well, I mean, Jesus, I mean, you know, Peter was, you know, he sat to the right of Jesus. And I had actually, you know, we were talking about this before, you know, my whole theory is, you know, that, you know, and I never thought as much necessarily about Peter, but that Judas was chosen by Jesus to betray him because somebody had to martyr him, and he needed to die on the cross, and he had.
Well, I feel like to say it's no different with Peter, though. I feel like it's not like Jesus didn't know.
Yeah, he
didn't need that chain of events to happen for.
He needed to happen.
All of that to happen.
But I mean, the theory is that, you know, those guys were told to do that by Jesus. Like, that is, you know, in the Bible.
I don't think
we're not. I
don't believe that he was. They were told
I'm not
to do
sure,
that.
man. They were the guys he trusted.
Yeah, I know, but I think he also, Jesus knows our hearts, right? So he knows who, like, if that's what he needed to have happen, he knew out of all of them which was the right one to have
do that
in that position.
Yeah,
you know.
So you're saying he preemptively put them there?
Well, yeah, because they still had they still had, you know, they still had options. They I think Jesus obviously knows, so he knew how that would turn out, and that's what he needed to have happen. So, you know, it all played out according to his plan. But
well, yes, that did.
But
I actually read somewhere that Peter is where the term right-hand man came from.
Is that right?
Like, that is your right-hand man because he sat to the right of Jesus. So I mean, I don't know if there's truth to that, or
Yeah.
if that's folklore. But you always think of somebody
I
like.
just wonder about when people say this is where a term came from. It's like, okay, well, but who says so? Like, where did that theory come up?
Where was that?
You know what I mean?
Where was that in the Bible?
Because I could just roll out and make up some stuff and tell some people like, yeah, that's where this saying came from. And if it sounds good enough, they'd be like, yeah. And then they'd go tell people, and the next thing you know, that's where that saying came from, and it really didn't come from that.
And now you started a movement.
You just started a movement of BS.
I could see that though, but I mean, I could see that. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Hey, as long as it sounds good and it makes a little bit of sense.
It's not in the Bible anyway.
Right? Oh, no, not really. But all right. So, what else you got? Last one.
Last one would be my maternal great grandmother. She is she's the woman who started the family here in the U.S. She was the first one to immigrate from Ireland. So it's she was a very important piece to the family. She was obviously an important piece to my existence, but she was also had a huge influence on my mother. She a lot of people think that the Irish came here because the potatoes wouldn't grow, and
like potatoes.
A big reason,
That's not why your mom
that is not why any of my family came. Great grandmother. That's not why they came. Usually, you came to the U.S. or you were asked to leave Ireland because you've embarrassed the family in some way or brought some kind of shame to the family. And my great grandmother fell in love with one of the stable boy. I don't know if my great grandfather was a stable boy or he was the butler. I feel like he was too old to be a butler, so he would have been a stable boy, and that was out of class. We talk about discrimination now. This was next level stuff. This was Irish Catholic. You do not marry out of your class. You do not marry out of your religion, number one, but then you do not marry out of your class. And she had a lot of money. She came over, checked out the country, went back, got him, and then they kind of came back and started their life here in a little 3-room apartment and had a ton of kids. My grandmother.
So your great grandmother was the decision maker as far as coming here.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, she made the decision and she had the means, to do that.
And they were married or not married yet?
You know what? I think they got married here.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure they got married here. I would actually have to find that out, but because that I've just never even asked. But I would actually assume they got married here.
Huh.
She had a bunch of kids. She went through a huge amount of tragedy in her life. She lost a number of children to the Spanish flu, and people, obviously having go through COVID as bad as people kind of thought COVID was. It was not nearly as bad as what those people went through with the Spanish flu. And
well, don't tell anybody that.
I know, please don't tell anybody that. But just to give you an idea, like one of the stories, from the family was that basically a city worker came and asked you how many people in your household were sick, and the next day they brought you that many caskets. That is, and so many people were dying. You just right. So many people were dying that they just would bring the caskets down to the street, Jersey City, and you would put your loved one in the casket, close the casket, and that's where you bid goodbye, right there on Montgomery Ave or wherever it was you lived in Jersey City.
Wow. And
then she had one of her elder sons, Aiden, who was slotted to be the first person to go to a university, was out partying in the back of Jersey City. And people don't realize, like, the railroads back then were such an integral part of travel in the city, and a lot of stuff was at grade level, and they were in a car that got hit by a locomotive. And he was killed, I think, at the age of 18. I think he was 17 or 18.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's...
The tragedy is, like, I feel like we don't... I mean, I know people obviously have tragedy today, but...
It just seems like from like stories, like the people of that era just went through so much. I think maybe just because life was harder. And I know there's tragedy now with, people losing kids to car accidents or whatever. Like there's a lot of tragedy that still goes on in the world, but it just feels like back in like the era of your great grandmother, like everybody just endured crazy tragedy.
Oh yeah,
of some type. I mean, I think medicine is probably a huge role in that. You know, a lot more people just died of things that they would not die of today. Right. So that added to those, you know, overall death tolls back then. Now, like tragedy is legit tragedy. You know, suicide or car accidents, or whatever, things like that. But back then, it was just like these illnesses that today would not just kill you.
Yeah.
You know,
it was. I mean, listen, I'd have been crazy as this is. I mean, I had a gallbladder that was malformed, and I was 23 or 24, I feel like, when I had my gallbladder out. And I had pain for years from my gallbladder, like from my late teens all the way into my 20s from this gallbladder that I never knew. I thought it was back pain. I just dealt with it. It was until it got so bad that I was like, holy crap, like I need to go to a hospital.
Right.
And you know what? That gallbladder would have burst probably. And I'd have died of a fever without, modern medicine. So it's like at the age of 24, you know?
Yeah, so many basic things, just like fevers, things like that, like just things. Childbirth.
My grandmother was a twin, and she was not the only. I'd heard that my great grandmother was pregnant like 20 times, and I don't know who would actually know that solid number now. It was from my grandmother, so that could have been like a loose truth. Could have been, what she knew, as well.
Right.
But my grandmother was a twin, and she was not the only set of twins in the family, and neither set, both twins lived.
Wow.
So my grandmother lived, her twin died.
I feel like, honestly, I feel like I have a story like that in my family.
Yeah.
I can't remember the details. I'm gonna see my parents this weekend. I'm gonna have to dig on that one. I feel like my grandmother or my grandfather, one of them had a twin that didn't live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not uncommon. I mean, it was not, not too uncommon. And, so that's, it's funny. That's how Irish people kind of wound up in the U.S. Her brother was a hurler. Hurling was a big Irish sport. It was the equivalent of our football or soccer over there. I mean, hurling was very popular, and he got a girl pregnant out of wedlock and off to America with you, boy.
Yeah.
So that's how like a whole nother branch of the family, got started, because it was like,
that's funny. Back in the day here in the States, like the girl got pregnant and the parents sent them off to Europe.
Oh yeah.
And over in Europe, they're like, go to US. They were just swapping out our little heathen children.
That's how it was, though, man. So that's it's interesting, and I mean, obviously, not that a lot of Irish people did not leave, Ireland over livestock disease and famine and potatoes.
I just thought it was about potatoes.
Famine. Yeah, it's more than just potatoes, man. So I love potatoes too. They call them champs. They call them champs in Ireland.
They call potatoes champs.
Champs. Yeah.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
Look it up, man.
I don't believe that. Yeah, and they drink Guinness, right?
They do. They drink Guinness that is higher ABV and not as cold.
I still don't think that's their primary beer over there.
No, I don't think Guinness is their primary beer. I
think like Foster's. Like they don't drink Foster's in Australia.
Well, I think they do drink Guinness over there. I don't feel like it's like Foster's with Australia. I do think that.
I think they drink Guinness in there, and I think it's the big name thing. But I think there's a lot of other stuff they drink. Instead of it.
I think the ales have become bigger, but I think the stouts back in the day, I feel like back in 100 years ago in the 1800s, the stouts were bigger because the water quality in Ireland was so bad. And I mean, we could get on beer stuff.
I was going to say, we could do a whole podcast on beer stuff. And as we've learned from our YouTube channel, probably wouldn't have very many listens, but it would still be a good time. So we should probably put that on the list.
There you go. But the water quality was so bad, so that's why they brewed those dark beers. And in places like Czechoslovakia, where the water quality was like so good, they could brew those like clear, nice, crisp pilsners. But in Ireland did not. Dublin did not have good water, so they brewed.
Why did they not have good water?
I don't know. I don't think any cities had good water. I mean, I don't know what the water table was. There's
plenty
a
of
lot of
non-city in Ireland.
There could have been a lot of lime in the water. I don't know what the.
Well, you know, if you have that, then you have to put that in the coconut.
That's right. You put the lime, not that kind of lime. The limestone lime.
But that could be good in coconut as well. I mean, who knows? Did you try it? Don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, that's funny. There you go.
Interesting.
So yeah, man, that's you know.
So basically, you just want to have a big family reunion.
I wouldn't mind it. I mean, with Albert, you know.
Albert, we got a family reunion and you're invited. Come on over.
What's up, Pop? Here,
hang out with the Giaconos.
my buddy Albert.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, you remember that's Mary?
Cool. Yeah, I made a conscious decision not to include family, but I mean, there's a component. There's definitely, you know, and I grew up with, you know, my grandfather was around a lot. Like we visited our grandparents a lot. My dad was super close with his dad, and I would love, you know, honorable mention. I would definitely love to, but I did get to like at least got to, you know, be a kid around him and stuff. And my grandfather was really cool. He was a carpenter and a big outdoorsman and all that stuff up in Maine, and cool dude. But I didn't include any family on the list. Sorry.
That's cool profession, man. Carpenter.
Yeah, no, he was pretty good. And man, I'll tell you what, like, I don't know about today, and maybe they're the same, but with technology, I'm guessing they're not. But like carpenters of that day, of my grandfather's, like math magicians, dude. The way that dude could do fractions and just like that, and just like break that down like super fast, like that was part of being a carpenter, the measurements, you know. Mm-hmm. So like, holy crap, was he good with that stuff?
Yeah, I mean those guys were. Yeah, those guys were a different breed. I mean, you see carpenters of you know an age ago. I mean, I look at guys. We just had a room remodeled where they had put up some walls, and I was watching this little Mexican dude like frame this wall, and he was, you know, he was good, you know. And here he was like 80 years old. You know.
Oh, really?
And he's.
I thought you were going a different direction on that.
No. I mean, he was like 80 years old, and he was just like, you know, here he is, and he's working with his son. They were like a team, you know, who subcontracted, you know, through the contractor who we had doing this, you know, and the kid's like looking at him, you know, yelling him in Spanish to put the level up there, and he looks at the kid and shakes his head, and he takes the level and he throws the level up against the stud, and it was like dead nuts, man. Dead nuts level. It's just.
You can only hope that guys like that are passing it down, because it's kind of scary, because you do see like the stuff back in the day that was built that's just still standing strong, and then you see things that weren't built like not that long ago already falling apart, you know. Like it's not the same art form it was back then. It's like cookie cutter, throw it up, make money as fast as possible. It's just not the art, and not as good as it was, and it's kind of scary.
It's not the pride.
Well, there's for a lot of that, there's no pride in it.
The materials are a little bit of it. I feel like
the materials are way worse.
The materials are a component of it.
Yeah.
Our wood today is not, you know.
Yeah. What are they doing? This is way off topic, but I just gotta, you know, what are they doing? Like, just to go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some wood and build something, and within like a year, it's like it's curving and bowing, and it's all out of whack and jack. Like, what is the cause of that? Do you know?
They're growing it. They've engineered it to grow fast.
Is that what you think it is?
Yeah. It's not old growth anymore. It's not. I mean, think about it. For you know, in 1700s, they were laying pine floors all over this region. You know, and you walk into these houses that were
and you can go visit those homes today. That like any place that's like a landmark kind of a place, and see those homes, and they still could live there. Like you could do a little cleanup and live there.
But it's the same pine floor that it was laid then, today. Now, if you take pine today and lay pine floors in your house, you're going to just chew them to death, because the pine is so much softer. Yeah, that old growth stuff is, it's a whole nother thing. It'd be a good thing to talk to Carolyn about, like just talking about the pine barrens. And
why in the world did you want to talk to my wife
because
about
so
pine
much
floors?
Well, because, you know, when we talk about old growth wood, and they had old growth pine here, and they destroyed these forests, and she's a piney.
She's a piney. That's the only, like, she can't tell you about lumber.
Maybe.
Like, listen, she's awesome. Don't get me wrong.
You don't think she knows anything about that?
And she fixes more things in the house than I do.
That's for sure.
But I'm gonna draw a line and say that I don't think she knows a lot about lumber.
All right, we'll see what you know. We'll see what she knows about the Pine Barrens. I think I'd like to put that to the test.
Okay. Well, we'll have the wives on soon enough to talk about something, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, moving on because I don't even know where we're at. And
That's
I don't
it.
want to go too far.
Did you do your third one?
Nope, I got my third one right now coming up. Coming up. I go last. So I guess maybe I spoke too soon. I said I only had one Hollywood. Technically, this one's Hollywood, but that's not why I chose this one. And we're going with Donald J. Trump.
That choice is huge.
Yes. Well, obviously a huge Donald J. Trump fan. For his politics, not for his Hollywood. I did like The Apprentice, but I wouldn't have picked him just based on that. But I would love to have a sit down with Donald J. Man, I think, and he gets ripped, and I know everybody and people watching are probably gonna have very different opinions on that. You either hate him or you love him. I don't really feel like there's an in between. I really don't. I don't think there's an in between on that. I think people either love him or they hate him.
I have a love-hate relationship with him. Absolutely.
So, okay.
Absolutely. We can get there.
I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I just really honestly, first of all, I want to more current. I want to know right now why. I truly want to know in his heart and again, sitting down at dinner with this guy doesn't mean he's necessarily he's got truth serum and he's gonna tell me. But let's just for this activity's sake, let's pretend that he's gonna be honest. I want to know why he's running right now. I want to know if he truly feels like a duty and an obligation and the country needs it, or if it's more of his ego because of the just the way he's been attacked brutally by the left, if it's more of a he needs to win, get the last laugh thing, or if he truly feels like he is the last hope for this country surviving without going in a very opposite terrible direction, which if you're watching this podcast you probably understand where we kind of fall on that in the line in society. But I'd love to ask him that. I'd love to ask him why not just just not run again and just go back to what you were doing, because I personally believe that if he said tomorrow, I'm done, I'm not running for president, I'm out, I'm dropping out, I feel like all this crap would go away, all this judicial bull crap that's coming hard for him would just go away. I think the only reason any of that's happening is because the left is so petrified that he's gonna win again, and they don't really know what to do. So this is their best bet of just attack him fully with the legal system and all these trumped up, no pun intended, BS charges, and just keep him tied up, keep him busy, keep him away from campaigning, keep him away from doing what he wants to be doing. So I feel like if he just said, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm done, I'm out, I feel like it would go away, and he can go live his life, and he would clearly be a rich man somewhere because the guy knows how to do that, and I would love to know that. I'm sure there's other things that I could think of to talk about with him, but he's a really polarizing figure. I think he's, like I said, I feel like you either love him or hate him, and I guess you can have a love. Listen, I'm not the whole time. I think he was one of the best presidents that we've had in a long time.
100%.
But I also, the whole time he was president, was why? Even though he said something that I would say, well, Burt's some nobody on Twitter saying that, and nobody cares. You said it, and it's gonna catch a lot of flack, right? And it's why'd you have to say that today, or why did you have to tweet that, or whatever? Even though I think so many of us are happy that he would say that because it's things that we would want to say, it's at the same time you do kind of think all right, you're the president, dude. Let's rein it back in on the trash talk on Twitter and focus on the important stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's not doing you. Because that's the only stuff that the left has to really target you for. Because everything you're doing as the president is good. Everything, it's working. The economy is great. There's peace in the Middle East, which whether it was just because they were afraid of him or what, you don't have that very often. Over the last 100 years, right? So these things everything was working, and everybody, I don't care what anybody says. If you say otherwise, you're lying. They're prospering. The bank accounts were better. Everything was better. 401k was better. Everything was better. The economy was better. Life was better. Gas prices were lower.
Interest rates were better.
Interest rates were better. Food prices were lower. Everything was way better than it is now. And I just feel like there's those little things where you're like, oh, you cringe because not because you don't agree with him. In my case, talking from my perspective, right. Cringe not because I don't agree with him, not because it's not something I wouldn't say on Twitter at 11:30 at night when I'm having a drink and running my mouth, but because he's the president and that's the ammo the left is looking for. Orange man bad.
Yeah, I feel like, obviously, I think he was a great president. I think he's a great figure, and we talked about this. My cousin Michael was a donor to his campaign and did, I think he might have been a member of one of his country clubs. I wasn't sure, but, had dinner with him and got to meet him and, said he was like, nobody else you'd ever seen in a room. Like the man commands.
There's no doubt.
Commands a room. And I feel like there is a handful of people in my life that I've been in a room with that really, truly command a room.
Yeah.
It's.
I don't know that I've been in many rooms.
He's captivating. I think
people that
truly
command the room.
Truly
like that.
command the room.
Yeah.
It's just. I don't know. I feel like
maybe a few
just,
coaches over my years, but not
many
people.
I think maybe coaches would be. There's a few physicians I can think of that would kind of fall into that category.
I think about just like what perfectly sums up what you're talking about commanding a room is the first time he ever, like on camera, met with Putin and had the handshake, and he went to shake his hand and he just freaking pulled him in, and just totally just big timed him. Like he showed him right then like who was in charge and who was the alpha. And there's all this hype about, we saw all the stuff back in the day about Putin and stupid pictures of Putin riding bears and how tough and he's KGB, all that stuff. But at that moment when Putin and Trump met for that first time with Trump as president, and he went in and grabbed his hand and just yanked him towards him, like it was like it just showed. It
was a no bullshit moment.
It was like he knew what he was doing too. Like he knows how to like kind of do that to people and make them understand who he is and what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and even when you look at so many things with him, it's. And not to not to go nuts over, but
hey, we like talking about that here.
It's even when you saw him in an interview, he was intent on listening. He was focused. He answered a question with a response that was usually appropriate for the question, which a lot of times in politics does not happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. My theory is though, if he was sitting across from you in like the power move, the blue suit and the red tie on. I don't know how many questions I'd have.
And he's not. And for one, I love. You see the memes and stuff. I love like he's not sitting there with his legs crossed.
No.
And I don't want to get all crass on here, but there's memes about why that is, as opposed to like he showed Biden with his legs crossed like a woman and whatnot. Like. He's say what you want about him. He's an alpha, and they've made, I don't know if he really legit said it. It was quoted as him saying, but I don't know if he really said it. But if he went to jail, like he would be the big daddy in jail too. And he would like set up shop in there and he'd be living the high life in jail because that's just who he is. He'd be running the show and that's just who he is. But, I don't know. And again, he might hate him and think he's trash, but I disagree. One of my
favorite Trump moments was when was it Al-Zakari that was killed?
Al-Zakari, something like that.
Yeah, that was killed when he was in office.
Yeah,
and the prior president, you get Obama. We launched an operation and we killed Osama bin Laden and. Yada, 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 yada. Trump comes out there and we're like, we shot him dead like a dog. He died a bad death. It was just like one of my favorite Trump moments. It was just
that comedian I sent you that skit a few weeks back.
He was
talking about that.
He was talking about that.
Holy crap. I wish I knew his name. I'd tell everybody to go watch it. He impersonated that whole thing. It's freaking hilarious. but that was how he was, man. Like he didn't speak in politics. Like he didn't speak politically correct. He didn't beat around the bush. Like this is what happened. We killed him. He died like a dog, like he should. And our men, our heroes, our SEAL team, whatever, they took care of business. And it's it wasn't like freaking just jargon that's like blah 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 that nobody. It's Obama's like everybody loved Obama, and yes, he spoke so well. He was so good reading a teleprompter. It was great. He seemed amazing, but he didn't say shit.
Yeah,
it was just blah 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 blah. That sounded good.
Yeah.
So.
And maybe Trump was reading off. Maybe he was reading off a teleprompter, and that's what the teleprompter said.
I highly doubt that.
Or maybe there was a teleprompter there that was telling him what to say.
And he was not even. He was like read the first 3 lines and then was freaking spitballing. That's come on, man. But yeah, that's our guy. That's our our people that we would have a meal with and.
That would be good.
That'd be interesting. And I know, like, I'm sure, like, aside from obviously, I think most people out there would have family people and stuff, grandparents, this, that, the next. Obviously, most people have that. But aside from that, like, I'm sure there'd be some really interesting, just based on who you are and what you're into, like, what kind of things. So please leave them in the comments.
Yeah. Let us know.
Let us know who it is, because we'd love to see that, and I'm sure it'd be funny or interesting one way or another. Yeah.
So what else? What else you got there?
Well, I've been saying this since we started the podcast, and I'm going to keep saying it. And we might have to up the stakes. But
what's up?
We need you guys can send us email at thisamericanride1776@gmail with your suggestions for topics, with your suggestions for guests, whatever. Like, well, maybe not guests, because we're not Joe Rogan and we're not just going to be able to call people and get guests.
I mean, I'll make a call.
But hey, we'll shoot out a DM, whatever. Give us but suggestion for topics and things like that you think would be fun to talk about. We still have not gotten an email.
Okay.
About this.
All right.
So we do not have merch yet.
We don't, but we're going to.
But we might have to go ahead and say the first email we get with a suggestion, we'll get some free merch.
All right.
A shirt, a hat, something. And it might take a minute because we got to get that done. But I'm just going to say it. I mean, he's probably not happy with me, but I'm saying it.
No,
I need to see an email. So the first person who sends us an idea of something to talk about that we haven't already talked about, you're going to get some free merch when we have it. And it won't be that long.
No,
we have.
It's coming.
I mean, we have ways to get it. We have other, like we said, we have the YouTube channel with merch, so it's not that hard. It's not like we're starting from scratch. So,
and
we got some ideas for merch. We've been talking about that. George had a couple good ideas. Obviously, we have the logo. So that's a call out to everybody listening.
Call to action.
Call to action. This American Ride 1776@gmail. Send us an idea, something you'd love to hear us talk about. Or, you know what? I'm just looking for the first email from someone other than Buzzsprout. So you send us an email, even if it's just to make a comment on one we've already done. It doesn't have to be a suggestion for a video, but even if it's just a comment on something we've already talked about, or just to say hi, send us an email. And the first one I get, and I'll be checking.
Winner.
You'll get some, and I will respond if you're the first one and let you know. And you can give me your mailing address or P.O. box, whatever you want to do. And when we have it, we will send you something.
Yep.
Because we need to get some.
I think it's a great idea. We need some interaction.
We need some interaction. We need to. We know people are watching. We see the numbers, but it's nice to hear. It's nice to
YouTube. You get that
feedback.
direct feedback a lot with the podcast. You don't always get that feedback. I know where people are listening from, but I don't know. Anything more than that.
And even still, I know plenty of people are watching at the YouTube platform. Leave us a comment. If 1, 2, 3 people that you would want to have your sit down with and have a meal with.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to hear. Yeah. So hopefully this was a little more lighthearted and fun than what is this thing? Then I thought the door was closed.
What's up,
What
Hank?
in the heck?
This is Hank.
Then the last one, which was a little more intense, and we'll probably have more of those. I mean, things in Israel aren't going anywhere, and the world is still, I'm just waiting for him to knock over the tripod. The world is still kind of crazy and burning. So there's plenty of things to talk about on a serious note, but this was just, we wanted to kind of mix it up. We don't want to come too heavy and feel and get you guys all depressed about life. Life is still amazing, and we're still all blessed to be here. And there's so much good in the world. We just get bombarded with the bad. So we don't want to bombard you too much, and we're trying to have some fun discussions as well, right?
Good stuff doesn't make good headlines.
No, it doesn't, but I think we all need it for our hearts.
True story.
So
we just had a moment here. I think Hank was our first podcast guest.
It looks like he was, and I have a feeling your wife's gonna be pissed that it wasn't her. He just welcomed himself in the door that was closed, and
what are you gonna
came in, and he didn't stick around and try to lick me, so I'm good. All right, guys, that is this week's episode. That was fun. Like I said, you heard what I said. Shoot us an email. First one gets something, and we'll try not to miss next week.
Yeah, we're good.
What do you got? Closing thoughts?
We're on it. Nah, man, this was a lot of fun. I think, we started this podcast. We said that there were going to be, no boundaries, no restrictions on things that we would talk about. And it's good, I think, to mix some fun stuff up with some serious stuff. And, we'll see what next week brings. But we are excited. We're excited about the podcast still. We haven't been as consistent as we wanted to, mostly because of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
And once because of remodeling. But we are working hard to get them stacked up. And
just for the record, we do have jobs.
We do.
Working around that, but we're trying really hard. We're going to stack up some here soon. We're gonna find a day where we can bang out a few, and so we don't miss weeks.
Yes,
but it's a process, and the technical part, George is kind of getting figured out. It's looking a lot better. He's got a bunch of fail safes built in this week, so hopefully we have no issues.
I got tools.
Oh. That was for me. Yes. I like that
so
one.
Yeah, we're working on it.
No, cool. This is fun, man. We're trying to have fun and entertain you guys and give you some things to think about, or some things to talk about, or things to interact with us with. So again, feel free, interact away. We're used to it. We're on YouTube. Yep. So let's quit rambling. Let's wrap it up. It's been a lot of fun, guys. We'll see you on the next episode, right?
Yeah, man.
All right.
Later.